Welcome to the DiCOTA Magazine Show, the premier talk show where we celebrate diversity, equity, and inclusion in business, leadership, and innovation. Each episode will introduce you to influential leaders from all sectors, ethnicities, and backgrounds. We'll share with you the story behind their story of how they made it, and you can too. I'm your host, Cedric Fisher, 40-year career journalist and publisher of DiCOTA Magazine.
Welcome to the DiCOTA Magazine Show, the premier talk show celebrating diversity, equity, and inclusion in the four pillars that make up DiCOTA: communities, opportunities, technologies, and amenities. DiCOTA, diversity and communities, opportunities, technologies, and amenities. Each episode, we bring you and introduce you to significant or individuals doing significant work in the space and promoting diversity in their lives and likely their professional worlds. This week, we're introducing you to two individuals affiliated with the commercial real estate company CRESA. CRESA is an international real estate company headquartered in Washington, D.C., notable for its occupier-only real estate representation services, including transaction management, building technology solutions consulting, facilities management, investment banking, lease administration, and other great services. CRESA is significant because they recently added to their board of directors the first African-American female. And that new director, Miss Angela Roseboro, who's actually employed with the gaming company RIOT Games as their chief diversity officer, is with us on the call, as well as the CEO from CRESA, Mr. Tod Lickerman. And we're going to talk about, you guessed it, diversity. Tod and Angela introduced themselves earlier to the show, share their individual background and experiences, and we're going to pick up the conversation from this question. What does it mean for your organization to have a commitment to diversity?
So if you can get that belonging piece right, it really cuts across, right? Because if I feel like I belong, then I feel comfortable, then you might listen to what I say, then you might not be telling me everything, and I don't have to be right and you have to be wrong. We just have to have a good exchange. I can tell you that when you're in a group that has broad diversity, it's a better group. Right, look at our C-suite. Our C-suite is more female than male in the entire executive committee. It performs way better than all the male-dominated ones I've been in before, right? And that's just a tip of diversity, right? Once you get really great players and everybody feels like they belong, good things happen. So it's not to forgive anything or to make this sound easy, but I think there's so many things to overcome for people who feel like they're not in the loop, or they're not in the mainstream, or they're not included, that going out of your way to make everyone feel included because it's how you behave, that's a good team, right? And I think this thing, the protests and George Floyd helped us understand how big the canyon can be, right? It's not your experience. You don't even know. You have no idea. No idea. And you need those, right? To say, the only way you're going to know is when you got a great group of diverse folks in the room. And then you're going to know because it's all going to happen. You're going to be represented. If you're not, you're myopic. And that's not a good place to be as a company, not for long-term survival at all.
I want to add something to what Tod said, because I do think you had asked about strategies. I think the employee resource groups are a great way to build cultural competence and to get insights and perspectives, because you can sit in your kind of C-suite and think you're doing all the right things. But having that perspective is super important. And I am a big fan of the ERGs for that reason, because it is for you to kind of increase your competence around these things. But you have to be open. Having diversity in the room is not the only thing. So having a culture that embraces and empowers you, that's a thing. And that's the tough part about this, is because I think we all conceptually get it. it is hard in practice to do. And I think that's where companies struggle a bit.
Very good. Next question. And we, just in the course of doing business every day, you're working with a variety of different people from tons of different backgrounds. Unconscious bias at times, others kind of know that they don't like a particular group of people. I.e. ethnic jokes go on around the water cooler or the coffee machine or during lunchtime. Have either of you ever been in a situation where you had to address a particular client and confront them about something they've said, and how did you handle that?
A client?
Colleague.
Good. Oh, colleague.
Oh,
yeah, I have a client. Okay. Yeah, well, I would say yes. So only recently are we getting anything like good unconscious bias training. We just had it. We've engaged the Burns brothers that did a leadership group. So we're just now starting to get good guidance on this. But yeah, of course you can't, and I had this with a client a couple times, you can't put your employees in harm's way, right? And with a client, it's actually a little easier because you say, no, I can't have people here if that's what's going on. And you can raise the flag like that, and you can call the foul like that in corporate America. I think it's harder internally, right? Would somebody ever tell? Well, I find people checking my references, right? I'll say something, and they'll just say, no, don't say it that way. You know, I say like ageist or this or that. So you don't understand what that sounds like. And I'll go, oh, got it, thank you, because it may not be what you mean, right? And if somebody's checking you on it, what you'll do is you'll say, no, that's not what I mean. And yes, I will stop that because of course I don't mean that, right? And so you may be speaking code you don't even understand. And so checking each other's very, very helpful. But we're just now learning the tools to do that, to be honest.
So I feel like this is a lot of my job. So, you know, I always anchor to values. And so when I've had to have those conversations, my values have backed me up. This is not who we are as a company. And sometimes it ends up that the person's no longer at the company. Sometimes it ends up that the person wasn't aware, and hopefully they can unlearn. But I bring it always back to what type of company and what type of culture. And, you know, the beauty of, you know, where we are is that people get to choose where they want to work. And so if you cannot adhere to the culture and the values that we've set forth, then that's not a place that we want you to be. And sticking to that has allowed me to have conversations. Some didn't turn out in the way that one side was happier than the other, but some turned out where people had an epiphany and was unaware and said, that's not where I was going. And they have learned new behaviors. But I tend to start with the type of company we want to be and the type of people who will be successful in the company based on our values. And so that's kind of the way I address those conversations. And I've always felt backed up. So that's important to say.
Very important. Okay.
Hey, Cedric, if I could pile on that. I think the challenge for leadership, right, inclusion and belonging, your loudest actions are when you exclude somebody. And so if you have bad actors, taking them out of the company, taking them out, you define who you are by who can't be here anymore.
Yep.
Are the most powerful things. And it's a tool that companies do it all the time, right? You do layoffs, you're forcing, having to pare back the workforce. So it's not like American companies struggle with excluding people. We take them out of the company. But if you start taking them out for the same values that you have, that will be powerful. And the few times I've seen that or been part of it, it speaks volumes.
Yep. Okay.
That's profound, Todd. I had never heard it put quite that way, but you're absolutely right. It's almost management by example or leadership by example. So here's your Martin Luther King mountaintop opportunity. What's your vision for diversity as it relates to the next generation?
One of the, if I were to look at last year and all the different challenges that were had, the moment that really struck me was in the protest. It wasn't just Black people protesting. It was young people protesting who said no. And I've seen that in school shootings where this younger generation just has a profound moral compass of what's right and what's wrong. And will join together around that. And so my mountaintop speech is the same as Martin's, Dr. King was. And that was that we are in a country where, we are equal and we are known by the content of our character, right? And so I think that has always been the dream. Are we there? No, no. And I think we wait for every generation to say they're going to be the generation that gets us there. What I recognize now is that all generations have to get us there. And, I have a 30-year-old and a 27-year-old. And when I think Jordan, my oldest, was like 8. And I remember, she played soccer. She was the only Black kid on the soccer team. We're in Dubuque, Iowa, where they're doing a soccer tournament. The soccer tournament stops. Jordan is kind of roughhousing with this young woman, a little 12-year-old, and they're roughhousing. And they come back on the field and the girl's out the game. And so we get out, the game is over, they win the championship, because I'm one of those moms, get her, what do you do? And I said, Jordan, what happened? And she started crying. And she said, Mom, she called me a name. And Jordan was embarrassed that her friends were the ones who said, we're not going to play this championship if they talk to my friend. So it wasn't their Black friend or their Asian friend, it was their friend. And that was my moment where I said, okay, this next generation is going to get it a bit better, because she's not going to describe her friends like I described mine. Oh, this is my white friend, Cynthia. This is my Asian friend. They were just her friend. And to see that level of exposure to each other gave me hope. So I still have great hope. In spite of what we're seeing, I still have great hope that every generation, the more exposure, the more they're around each other, that they will kind of go on to their similarities versus their differences. And I know that's kind of a pipe dream, and I know it doesn't feel that way. But I have great hope in how we will evolve as a country, even in the face of what we're seeing right now.
Tod?
Well, I would agree with that, right? You can look at next generations and be very inspired and very hopeful. We stand on the shoulders of our ancestors, right? And certainly everything I've become has been, on the backs of my grandfather, my father, and all the ancestors. And the progress has been, light years, right? I look at kids younger than us, and they're just not playing the game the way we are. And that's mostly it's a really good thing when it comes to D&I. Gosh, you can look at other things like social media and criticalness and self-esteem and all kinds of other things. That's why I like the belonging thing, right?
Yeah.
Because I actually think some of the social stuff is destroying the belonging thing.
Yeah.
But when I look at least the youngsters I'm exposed to, I'm super hopeful. In fact, I'm running really hard to catch up, so they've got a place where we start to look more like them, to be honest. And I love the demographic development of the country. This country's always been that way, right? Whether you're, European-American or Italian-American or Polish-American or this American or that American, it's always been the place that multiple generations get it a little bit better. So that takes nothing away from the horrors of the institutional problems we have now, but I like our chances, right? And I think we're so far ahead of many other places around the world. In terms of where the generation's going, I wouldn't make any apologies for where we are right now and everything. That's for sure.
Good. So you both sound encouraged that it's going to get better in time. Tod.
Yeah. I do. I think it's hard in the pandemic and what we're going through to kind of see that light, but I have to believe in that light.
Yeah, absolutely. Tod, what was it about Angela's background that made her appealing to add her to CRESA's board of directors?
Well, it helps that you know professional services, which she has done, right? Angela and I worked at a company called JLL, which was one of the formative big companies in our industry. And so she had come from like financial services, right? Mm-hmm. Angela from Tiro.
Yep.
And so she kind of could morph from corporate America and that way to our industry to then others. And that's really important because if you come from manufacturing or something else, it's just not the same. So she understands the code and the formula for how this business runs. And it's very, very interpersonal. And Angela gave a great talk to our folks, our leaders the other day, about how we behave and we hunt wolf packs and what it takes to get in the wolf pack. And I mean, she can articulate exactly how people, how they get their work done here and how they behave and how they look at themselves and how they look at others. And so all of a sudden we now benefit. We're not translating anything about, oh no, this we mean here. So she's ahead of us. No, she understands us better than most of us do, which is really great. And she has such an analytical and a positive and a talent-based view on it that it's hard not to rally around what she's saying because she's going to the next place. This is not a compliance or a check the box or a legal. This is a, hey, if you say you want to do this, you're going to have to start doing that. And that's easy. That's easier to rally around, frankly. And I think we can make bigger change.
Very well. Angela, what attracted you to joining the board? I'm sure, based on what Tod just shared with you, given the fact you walk on water and part Red Seas, you were in quite demand. What was it about CRESA that attracted you?
Tod's a great leader. And I know, when we worked together, we had very transparent and open conversations. And so I know where, he wants to take the company. And so to be part of that growth, and to have one that is a leader that I just think is such a phenomenal leader in this industry, it's a joy to be able to do and to be able to bring some of that. And I do think understanding the space and understanding the industry helps a lot because it is a very insular industry. And so being able to have to be through that, I want to be able to help the vision of the company come to life and lend any way I could. That's what attracted me to this board, but definitely the CEO.
Plus, we get to have board meetings in Chicago.
Oh, yeah, that's true. I get to go back to Chicago. So
that's fantastic. Okay, a couple final questions here. We have the privilege of interviewing some phenomenal leaders across all sectors and regions, and again, all the demographics of ethnicity and age, gender and sexual persuasion, religion. And one thing we've concluded about leaders, all leaders are readers. They all are readers. And they typically have a book that they refer back to. Sometimes it's only on occasion, once a year, once every couple of years they pick that book up. But that book is typically found on their nightstand. Tod, what book is on your nightstand?
Thanks for sharing this in advance because I had to go look. I have piles of books on my nightstand. Look, here are two that I am actually haven't quite finished, but I'm in the middle, that I think are really appropriate to our discussion. So Isabel Wilkerson's "The Warmth of Other Suns" is fantastic. One is about Chicago, or a lot of it is, so it's fantastic. But it when you want to get a sense of standing on the shoulder of your ancestors. Right. This is about the influx of migration in basically the 20s to the 70s in Chicago of Black America. But, it's the story of the migration and a search for a better world for your kids. And you read these stories and it's heartbreaking, but it's inspiring because you realize these are people that helped us get here. Right. And then the other one, which is interesting, is there's one called Live Wired, and it's by a neuroscientist, and it's about how your brain is neither hardware nor software. It's both, and your experiences actually change the wiring of your brain. And so it's not like, and I think I didn't think it had anything to do with this discussion until I was just thinking about it now. So it's how your brain develops based on your experiences and the input and output, and how it rewires itself based on what you do. And the interesting thing is sometimes you can look at so my allegory to this would be, you can look at something and say, hey, that is so hardwired, that'll never change. And you really realize a number of steps in the right direction creates momentum, and momentum can change things. And in fact, your brain's doing it all the time. So, and it's a cool book.
I'll read that book.
Yeah. Live wired. It's like the story of the hardwired brain, or the story of the live wired brain.
Outstanding. Angela, what book's on your nightstand?
So I'm reading two right now. One is Dare to Lead by Brene Brown. I think just, as I keep evolving as a leader, that's a book that's on my nightstand. The other is Cast by Isabel Wilkerson. I haven't dove into it quite yet, but that's my next book I'm reading.
Okay.
And then I have one that I just referred to, and I have it right now, and it is The Book of Joy, which I think is an excellent book about purpose. And when you spend so much of your career just working, like it was a book to pull me back to say, what is joy and what's my purpose? So those are the three that I'm into right now.
Outstanding. This is going to conclude the interview. And first and foremost, again, thank you to both of you for joining us and sharing your background with us and commitment to the whole DE&I movement and revolution. Should any of our viewers, want to reach out to you or gaining more information or what have you, what's the best way to reach you?
I'm active on LinkedIn. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm active on LinkedIn. Tod Lickerman on LinkedIn. It's the easiest.
Okay, great.
Yep, Angela Roseboro on LinkedIn.
LinkedIn,
I
okay.
know we dress alike, we think alike. There we go.
Sorry.
Angela Roseboro on LinkedIn. That's the easiest way.
Okay. Any final thoughts you want to leave the viewers with?
Look, thank you for taking the time to talk with us. Right, we're just one company. We're a medium-sized company, but we're going to try to get some things right, and hopefully we can help things evolve.
Okay, Angela.
Every one of us has the power to make a difference. And I hope that, you talked about kind of the light that we believe that this country can be, that we step into that being a difference maker and step into that with full knowledge that I have the power to make a difference.
Outstanding. Thank you both very much.